From the advertising media capital of the world, New Milford, Connecticut, wherever that is. This is Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson, a bi-weekly-ish podcast about all things automotive marketing. Now, here's your host, Matt Wilson.
Dude, whoa. Yes, here we are. Another episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. We've made it to several episodes. It's not really that surprising because they just keep handing out podcasts. I mean, everybody has a podcast. The dude who paved my driveway last week probably has a podcast. I don't even know about it, but he probably has one about probably all the people who pave driveways listen to it. He's it's his niche. He's the driveway paving expert. Lots of podcasts. And here is mine. If you like automotive marketing, maybe you are an automotive marketing director or a salesperson or a general manager or an executive manager, or you work for an agency or a vendor, I'm hoping maybe you find it informative and, dare I say, even possibly entertaining. Maybe. The topic for this episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson is website basics, mission critical things, right? Dealership websites are like the Wild West. There's the big vendors out there like CDK and Dealer Inspire and Dealer.com, but there's also 500 other vendors. Everyone has the name Dealer in their company name, by the way. But it's like the Wild West. There's a million of them out there, and there's a million different things you can do, changes, customizations, and I think dealers can get really caught up in getting their website not just right, but getting it to their liking. And I think it's important to think about what are things dealers need to focus on? What are those mission critical things to think about when you're either setting up your website from scratch, or maybe you're switching vendors, or you're doing an audit, or your OEM has done an audit and you want to go through and make changes. What are those things, the mission critical things you have to think of? So that's what we're going to tackle in today's episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. And my guests today on Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson from Dynamic Beacon, the co-founders of Dynamic Beacon, Ben Kohler and Justin Brunn. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whenever people are listening to this. How you doing, guys?
Doing really well. Yourself, Matt?
Good. Guys, good to talk to you. We've worked together before at various stores that I've been involved in, and you guys do a fantastic job, and you can plug yourselves at the end of this. But right now, I wanted to talk to you about some of the website basics and mission-critical things that dealers should think about, whether they're starting a new website from scratch or they're switching vendors. What are a few of the things that dealers should think about first when building a new site or changing sites?
I think first dealers need to really, consider the platform that they might be switching to or the existing platform that they might have. Of course, they want to ensure that that platform is fully responsive. So regardless of the device, it's the best experience possible for that user. A dealer might also consider kind of the site load time of that provider that they're considering, again, to ensure that the experience is as great as it can be and making sure that content loads extremely fast for each and every visitor session. So those are maybe two of the initial things when they're looking at the provider that they may consider.
And then what about
just to echo? Just to echo there with Justin. I think there's a tendency, right, as maybe dealers, you're evaluating different web providers and templates and platforms or whatever the case might be, to really have a mobile first approach and mentality. Justin was touching on that with kind of the responsiveness, say, of the site, how it renders on different devices, but really having a mobile first mentality or approach as a dealership, as you're evaluating a web provider, the templates that are there, what does the UX, UI look like, really looking at things with a mobile first mentality, I think is really mission critical.
And I just want to add as well, I think, when considering your provider, you might also want to ask probing questions kind of concerning, your direct point of contact, maybe how many accounts that individual may or may not be managing at one time. You really want to kind of set your dealership up for success, and you want to ensure that you're partnering with sort of the right provider that's going to be able to deliver the sort of support that you're needing during a site launch.
Yeah, support's a good thing. I'm going to go back to that in a second too, but just looking from the mobile first standpoint, I bet you that's a problem for a lot of dealers. I think a lot of dealers know that, right? But then when it comes down to it, they're looking at proofs of their website, they're going through the process, they look at a lot of that stuff from the desktop, at the desktop perspective, and then they kind of at the end go, oh yeah, here's what the mobile looks like. Like I get it, that's important, but I do you find a lot of dealers believe that, but then have a lot of trouble like executing that during the development phase?
I think so, yeah. And particularly, as you're looking at, say, various elements, just say of the site itself, and starting first with the homepage, one thing that comes up quite a bit are those sliders or banners, and seeing how they render. There's a tendency to want to put a lot of information, say, on some sort of a homepage slide with various offers and information about that vehicle, and then you're trying to squeeze in disclaimer language and the like. And on a full desktop, you feel like you've got plenty of room there, right, to work with and provide all that information on some sort of a slide. You then go to mobile, and it's all of that content or information is virtually illegible then. And so this is kind of one example of an instance where, you're thinking maybe from a desktop perspective and viewing everything on desktop versus not then looking at mobile. And that's just one among many, for sure.
It's funny you bring that up because I wrote that down here specifically. At my last job as the marketing director of a Nissan group, I was on a one-man quest to eliminate homepage slides from all websites, right? And so I was like going around trying to rally up the troops, like, hey, what do you think of homepage slides? And I'd try and convince them, no one looks at them, no one clicks on them, get rid of it. We want buttons, we don't need homepage slides. They don't translate on mobile anyway. And I was getting support. All the EMs and GMs were on board. And then one GM was like, I need my slides. And then we like redesigned the whole site so we could have these giant slides on the front of it. And I was on this one-man quest to get rid of homepage slides. Give me your general thoughts in general on homepage slides.
Yeah, I think what's challenging that in some instances, Matt, that, the manufacturer is pushing down these sort of slides, this content. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges we see, even if we're working with a dealership who kind of recognizes the value of clear and concise calls to action, kind of quickly getting people deeper into the site by way of those CTAs. The manufacturer in those instances is still pushing down that slide content. So we feel like in many instances, we still actually need to have those slides. I think for us, we're just kind of focusing on the number of slides that are there. So we want to ensure that when and where possible, we really don't have a really cluttered slideshow. If there needs to be some specific slides there to support a particular monthly promotion or event for the manufacturer or a specific program, that's fine. It's just kind of reducing the number of slides that are part of that slideshow.
Do you think there's anything, by the way, I'm talking with Ben Kohler and Justin Braun, the co-founders of Dynamic Beacon. Is there anything in particular you think that dealers tend to like overthink in the process of changing websites?
I'm just kind of thinking here out loud. So you're saying in the process of choosing a new provider, Matt, they might be overthinking something. Is that right? Yeah,
or even in design. Are they like getting hyper focused on something that in your back of your head you're like, dude, listen, it's important, but we need to worry about A, B, C, D before we worry about L.
Yeah, I think in many cases for us when we're designing, working with clients, prospective clients, there sometimes seems to be too much of a focus just on the sales department and not enough focus on fixed operations and really treating that like the backbone of the dealership and not just the back end. So, we know with new car gross profit, it's pretty gross, right? And it's continuing to shrink. So there's a rising reliance on fixed ops. I would say that when homepage designs are considered, that's something that's overlooked, and there's oftentimes too much focus on sales.
That's a good point too. You would, because you look at it, you're putting together the website, and then you come to a point where you're like, oh yeah, we should stick the schedule service button on here somewhere. It's like that should almost be the first thing you think of because that's because of the profit that's coming in from that side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right that sort of service opportunity, inviting people to engage, right, with service coupons, quickly scheduling service, it's oftentimes overlooked. Also, in addition, we oftentimes see that dealers are kind of overlooking that service value proposition, even creating that and promoting that as well on the homepage as an inviting place to get people to engage with fixed ops.
What about specials pages? Sometimes the specials pages on some platforms are pretty limited. I don't want to name out any platforms, but let's think of one that rhymes with CDK. Or, Oh, man. Anyway, sometimes the platform of the specials page can be pretty limiting. What is the importance of a dealer being able to customize that? Or I've used you guys before to customize, design my specials page at some of my stores, and have always been very good looking, very responsive, very good conversions. What's the importance of dealers thinking about that? And should they consider that when trying to decide which platform to go with?
Yeah, I think they absolutely need to. I mean, I think they need to look no further too than say what performance metrics, say within Google Analytics, or what's their native then within that web platform. But if they do that, they're going to very quickly and easily see that the specials pages, whether it's new vehicle specials, used vehicle specials, those are some of the most frequently visited pages on the website. Next to inventory, as you look at traffic, it's going to be then those specials pages. So you need to make sure, again, they're rendering properly desktop, tablet, as well as a smartphone. So, and specifically then on mobile, again, having that mobile first mentality. And you're right, in a lot of instances, those kind of native specials builders really aren't all that optimized for mobile. And that's maybe being kind in terms of stating it in that way. So really ensuring then that sort of specials builder and what is there renders exceptionally well on mobile, all devices, and also just again the kind of user interface that's there enables that individual, that web visitor, that car shopper to quickly then request more information, or maybe other calls to action that were then applying for a trade or a credit application, whatever it might be, having multiple calls to action to move them from that specials page to, in some way, shape, or form, contacting the dealership.
Now, besides being the co-founders of Dynamic Beacon, Ben Kohler is also the CRM manager at Acton Toyota of Littleton, and Justin is the director of marketing and e-commerce at Acton Toyota of Littleton. How did you guys, first of all, so do you guys use your like Acton Toyota as your guinea pig, since it's also your store?
Yeah, I mean, typically with most products that we're looking at, and also the sort of code that we develop at Dynamic Beacon, landing page content, homepage, et cetera, is typically all tested at Acton Toyota first. Sort of our petri dish, if you will, before we roll it out to our dealer network.
Now, listen, I've had great success working with you guys before. We've had a good relationship. You guys do very good work. But before I let you go, why don't you give a little plug for Dynamic Beacon?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that, Dynamic Beacon is extremely unique in that we're a true dealer-to-dealer digital marketing agency. So Dynamic Beacon was born out of Acton Toyota of Littleton in 2012. Ben and I still have kind of one foot in the dealership, so we really are that trusted peer, and we're able to offer advice unlike any other agency that we're aware of in our space.
Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you joining me. Good to talk to you as always, and thanks for the conversation and your insight. We have good weather up here right now in New England. I'm in Connecticut, and the weather is pretty good at the time of when I'm recording this podcast. But one thing that's been bothering me about this time of year is people who are already complaining about it being too hot. Like, I have a buddy who was talking to me on Marco Polo. Have you ever heard of the Marco Polo app? Check it out. It's pretty cool. And he was Marco Poloing me, or poloing me as I call it. And he was complaining about the heat. Oh, it's too humid. It's too hot. And I'm like, dude, you complained about it being too cold 3 months ago. You can't complain about it being cold and then complain about it being hot. You have to pick a season and go with it. And that's the season you can complain about. You can't complain about both. Otherwise, you hate where you live. Then just move somewhere where it's the climate you like year round. You get to pick one. Are you too cold? Okay, fine. Complain about it in the winter. But in the summertime, be hot. Oh, what's that? You're too hot? Fine. Complain about it. But in the summertime, be happy you're cold. You cannot complain about both. I would rather be cold than hot because sweating is gross, right? So I'd rather be cold than hot. Once you're hot, you're hot. You can't do anything about it. But if you're cold, you can bundle up. You see? That's a little bit of wisdom. That falls under the mostly aspect. Nothing to do with automotive marketing, but something I wanted to get off my chest. So there you go. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson. We'll see you next time, 2 weeks-ish.
Mostly Automotive Marketing with Matt Wilson is brought to you by... Wait, this guy has sponsors? Oh, never mind. This sheet of paper's blank. No sponsors. That makes more sense. For updates, info, future episodes, and more, follow on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, like on Facebook, and connect on Frackle. You guys made that last one up. That's not even a thing, Frackle. Come on.